Here we are, guys. Yeah, very excited. It's the first time that at our program, MENEGO Maestro, that we do a special appointment. We do video interview, and we have a guest in presence. So thank you also to Rocket Radio guys for set up everything so cool.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so here we are with Miles Cooper Seaton, our guest, and really excited about it because we are working on a project together, and in 2 days we will have a performance together at the church of Santa Maria in Chiavica in Verona, the city center. And today we can talk about this project and this album, your new album that is coming on the 8th of April, Faces in Exile. And there's so many things connected. I think that is a project that is really deep, really that needs to explain, because it's not only an album, these are not only songs, and you're not only a singer, you're many things. So and so yeah, he knows a bit of Italian. and so I think we can start if you want from the beginning, because this album, when you made me listen to this, it was, I think, kind of 1 year and a half ago, more or less, and it was almost ready. So I think it's a project that you started many years ago, this album, and then everything has gone deeper, and now we are here in Verona. So please tell us about it.
So now I'm going to tell a story. So I came to Verona after I had already had recorded Phases in Exile, which is the first record that I've made of song-oriented music. I make ambient and atmospheric, more installation-oriented music as well. But I had finally made a record of songs, which was I recorded it in North Carolina. This was about, at this point, probably something like 2.5 years ago. I had been on tour with Akron Family, my band that I've been in for too long, maybe something like 15 years, 13 years we've been a band, and so I was touring all the time and not having a lot of time to really work on my own music. And then at some point, Akron Family decided that all of us needed to really do our own music and focus really purely on each of our kind of soloistic tendencies. And I had written a lot of songs that I had planned to record, and some of those I put on Akron Family Records, and then I went to North Carolina to record with a few people there. I have a lot of friends that are in North Carolina. So I went there to record. I can't even remember the year now, so I think it was about 3.5 years ago. And recorded, I drove there with my wife, and we drove across the country from Los Angeles, where I live now, and we stopped in North Carolina. I spent about a week in the studio there with a guy named Brian Heron, who's really, really amazing engineer, and I left there with really kind of the basic skeleton of the record, and then I drove back across the country, and both times taking the southern route of the United States, which when you go through past about the middle of the country, you touch Texas, and then you're in Texas for like 2 days, and as you get further and further west, everything opens up and the space is so massive, and you can drive for hours and hours and hours and not see any other cars. And so I really had become really obsessed with this feeling of open space and with trying to create some kind of sonic representation of a visual atmosphere of space. And really, my music primarily deals with the existential situation that's at the core of being a human. I feel like my understanding now as I get older is that if a song doesn't address some core issue of what it means to be a human, then usually it's not functioning correctly, because it's not telling a story that's really that relevant. And there's so many things that, of course, there's ways that you can read very banal words to have a deep meaning, but the intention behind my music is always to try to explore on a deeper level some fundamental aspect of what it means to be a human and the complexity of that experience. So one of those situations that I find to be important is addressing the fact of total emptiness with this feeling of wanting to exist in place, but also being in a place that's so nowhere that you can really experience yourself in relationship to emptiness. Understanding that you identify as a person in space, as a kind of solid point, when really you're just part of this empty structure. So being in Western Texas, being in Nevada, being in the Great American Desert, I felt like I was able to really experience this sense of emptiness and I'm wanting to become that emptiness. So I came back to Los Angeles and I started making all kinds of different movements with people, trying to create orchestration. I worked with Miles, who's a really amazing musician, and a friend of mine, Joe Westerland. I worked with him as well to kind of create some of the different textures. And then, so I've got the record to a point where I thought it was finished. I felt like I was done. And then I was asked to come to Italy to perform, which is really amazing. And I called a good friend of mine who's Akron family's agent here and asked him, maybe you can find me some solo shows. And I came here and I played in Italy, and I was here for 1 month, when in the past I had always moved through Italy so quickly, and I was really able to spend time here and talk with people. And I met the C+C guys here and I showed them my record, but in a way that was kind of like, check this out. It's something that I did because I was obsessed with the feeling of wanting to perform in time, obsessed with this feeling of wanting to be with people and not really caring much about being a recording artist, because it's just a different project. I wanted something that was alive. And the feedback I got from you and from the other guys was that it was really, that the record was good and that it would be great to do something with it. And so over this time, I was becoming increasingly, I guess the word is like disenchanted, or sort of just not really interested in the kind of mechanized situation of music. And I had been feeling this way for a long time, but in the States, there's just such a lack of opportunity to be able to really connect with people, because everyone is so busy all the time hustling to try to get somewhere, that they're not actually investing in trying to make something purely for the idea of making something special. And I came here and that was the situation that I found. So we started collaborating, making a record with C+C that's still kind of in process. And we started this longer, and I started to identify with the idea of still wanting to, I started, as I traveled all over Italy, I started seeing how in each region is so different, that you go from Verona to Bologna and it's like completely different people. It's like really, really different. And over and over and over again, I would have these experiences where, someone who I'm close with in Piedmont and someone who I'm close with in Emilia-Romagna, and they talk about each other, and the way that they talk about each other is like they don't understand. And these are people that this is like, to cross from Emilia Romagna to Piedmont is like crossing from Los Angeles, you know, to San Diego. It's like a very close thing. It would be nothing in the States, but it's here. It's like each little line is so strong. And this diversity is something that I find to be so rich and so rewarding. And so I wanted to try to find a way to work with that and experience that and to make work about that. And a lot of that is because as the internet continues to pass around the information that we have about everything, all of this kind of, we become closer and closer together, but we lose all of that amazing rich texture that is really what makes up us as people, you know? And so things are getting less and less and less different, and the difference is so powerful. So I feel like I came back to Italy with a lot of purpose to try to make something about that. And I wanted to try to make, after I finished the record and talked with C+C about putting it out here in Italy and really wanting to release a record and really focus only on Italy, not trying to go immediately to every single country in the world, not trying to like be huge everywhere, but really focusing on a place where I felt like there was something rewarding to happen and a community that I identified with. So, you know, I had this idea of really wanting to create some way to demonstrate the powerful diversity within Italy. And so for this reason, I decided with these guys, I wanted to release a record with the C+C, with Vajamal Records, and with Trovo Rubato. And then I also wanted to try to stage at least one performance in each of all the regions in Italy, so that I could work with a group that was specific to each site and to each region to develop an expression of the simple compositions that I have. Mostly because the compositions can be, you know, if you have one fixed thing, then if you just kind of, you know, can rally around this, you can see that real difference. The way that the people in Emilia Romagna will make this music is so different than the people of Veneto, and etc. So this has been a really, I have a lot of passion for this experience and for this possibility that could really, that this could really help me to connect with people here, but also I want to be able to document this and try to then use the documentation as a way to demonstrate to the rest of Europe, to the rest of the world, about this really amazing diversity that's happening, this wealth of culture that's happening in Italy. All the different creative minds, all the different things. Because one thing that I notice as being from America, we're always broadcasting. We always have the ears and the eyes of people all over the world are wondering what we're doing. I talk to people here. We have conversations all the time. They ask about my taste, the things that I like. They're interested in knowing what I like because they think that it's going to be cool and new. But to me, what I find is, what are you into? Like, what's happening here? What's the musical tradition of this place? What are the spaces like? You know. So I feel like there's some level where, as an American, I want to try to be a cure, or at least try to help to refocus the people that I'm interacting with in the artistic way on what is special about their place. And one of the things that's so amazing about working with you guys is that, you know, I knew this the first time that I met you. I told you this. I said, what you have in this place with these people, with this community, is so powerful. And if people could just look at this, not you go show them, but if we could make a way for people to look and see from the outside this really amazing jewel that's happening here, people would want to come here. It would draw people here. And that's what I want. And there's a lot of other reasons for that, but obviously this is the long story that you just got.
Oh yeah, no, thank you. Now, before talking about Italy, that of course is really important for the whole project, I think that will be interesting. talking about the beginning of this, because yeah, you talk about what has happened before you start releasing the album, more or less, of course. Not releasing, sorry, working on the album. But I think that's really interesting, talking about the album in terms of music and in terms of the, you know, the that what it means, because of course this album you start working before that, all of what are we doing now wasn't taught before. So I think that is really interesting, because there's so many aspects that only talking about the album, from the name, from you know, it's called Phase in Exile. So there are the phases that could be the phases of life. The exile, that is also a really strong thing, and many views that you can so many waves, and also the fact that it is an album made of layers. What I first thought listening to this, it was that it was a kind of ambient album, pop oriented. Not, of course, I'm saying in the sense of you know, Brian Eno. I know you know that kind of ways of working on music, and to build up songs, because more or less are 8 songs on 10, 8 song oriented songs. And then 2 pieces of ambient layers, instrumental. But I think that this is really interesting, because I think that it's all connected. Because to me, as a listener, because you have been a person that has traveled so much. You have been always around for kind of 15 years, and you told me that you moved from, when you were young, you moved from Los Angeles, Seattle, then New York. So I think that this is, of course, something that makes the difference. And in terms of music also, these things are all connected. I think this is really interesting, because now all these are phases, layers, and this is really interesting also, because now that in these days we are working on doing an arrangement of the live version of these songs. We are working on layers, and then there are the layers of musician playing as kind of different instrumentation, or you can see the musician as a kind of different machine synthesizer that you use it. Yeah. No, but not in the sense, negative sense, but you know, someone that start with a sound and keep playing, and then also I think it's really interesting, because these are, I think, the main points of what I felt listening to your music in the last period, the last part of your music. I'm not referring to Akron Family, because of course in Akron Family I really felt the band. Of course, as any band, sometimes you feel more one element than other, and when you really listen to the more works of a band, not only a single artist, you start understanding what is happening. Maybe there's someone that has a different style, and then you see, you know. But when you listen to a single person, single artist, you can. It's harder from other from some aspects, but it's easier from others. And listening to your works, I think that these elements are really strong. The fact that you are always traveling, you take inspiration from different places. Every movement is always something new to add, and also the space. You talk about the space, so there is the space that you can use it with the layers, with the reverbs in terms of music, but it also the space that you really felt with yourself going to the desert, that you told me that you usually go to the desert. That I think it's amazing, of course, because we haven't the desert here. I love the desert. I've been in the desert, in the Sinai desert, but it's so crazy. I think to me, when I'm thinking about the desert, I really think about your music, because I remember that when you sent me the first link of the album, the private link, the images that you had on your website at the time were all the images of the desert. And when I was listening to this, I said, wow, this is the hair going through the sand that is always the photo that you had. It was when the hair as with the sand as really passing through the stones that has made kind of really gallery. And I've been walking this kind of stuff, and this is the sensation. I think this is really the sensation, the feelings that you, for me, of course. I don't know if you are hearing something that. Yeah.
I feel very. To me, it's so surprising that someone hears what I'm intending.
Yeah, that's cool. And so this is something that I think it is some points that some seeds that have grew up, and then with this long process, so phases, process, and layers, and now spaces, because you are working, trying to take your music, your album, and your project to different spaces. So I think that this is really also important, because now we are working on your show, that will be the first of a long project that you told before, and we are working on with a church, and so what do you think about the venues that are not the standard venues? So because this is also really important, I think that you are bored about the standard venue.
I am very bored of standard venues. I think that there's a bunch of different things to respond to. So one thing I will say to start where you ended is that my experience of playing music in a standard venue is very I feel like there's a massive limitation on what I consider to be music, because to me music is a real expression of our humanness at a very deep level, and especially when you start to work in composition or songs, especially songs that have lyrics that have very clear messages, you are speaking to basic humanity, as I was saying. And I feel like there's something to me that the context of a kind of normal rock club, it removes all of the kind of the potency of human experience. It's really like it's standardized. It's there purely for the intention of selling alcohol, purely for the intention of making money. There's not really much else that goes on there. You can transcend this context sometimes. I feel like I'm playing really expressive rock music. I was able to use the PA systems that are in rock clubs to move energy in a way that I feel really proud of. I feel like there's ways that having these kinds of setups and these stages are really they can work for certain things. But what happens is, over time, if you want to start communicating something deeper, the context for music in these kind of standard venues, it's not based on having the attention of the people that are there. And for me, a performing artist's job and their role is very critical to the spiritual development of human beings. And I feel like when you undermine that spiritual role spiritual in a secular sense for me. I'm not religious. Other people can think of this religiously, but spiritual, when you undermine this critical spiritual function of a performer and you take that away, all you have is another empty transaction. So people walk into this space, it's the standard space, and what it does is it removes the music, it removes the real spiritual power of what's happening almost completely. So unless the artist is policing this, unless the artist is constantly trying to create this spiritual internal space inside themselves, it's almost impossible to transcend that context. So when you go to a place like a church that's made for this reason, that's made for to deal with the spiritual aspects of humans initially, even if it has all these other political things we know. I'm not ignorant to that. But when you go into a space that's made for worship, that's made for attention, that's made for people to connect with something deep, there is a level where it's just helping you. It's helping you to achieve what it is that you have inside yourself. And if you're a nihilist and what you have inside yourself is a desire to just make a very beautiful and strong sound, it will help you in that way. It feels like something is guiding you towards that. So I think that it's interesting too when you talk about space and you keep using all these different metaphors, which I think is really cool. I love metaphors. For me, when I'm thinking about the space, a lot of times I think about things in these different layers with different layers of meaning. You have the internal space, the spiritual space, the magic space inside of each person, inside of each human, but also inside of the performer. Then when you start to extend that into what we're doing collectively when we're organizing this music, I feel like I try not to be too much of a fascist, but I'm very concerned with the space that we create as a group. Not just the sound, but the attention, the space needs to sound like something, needs to feel like something. It can sound great, but if it doesn't feel like the space has captured the attention and the feeling of all the people performing the music, then it's useless. Everyone needs to be there for it to really work. Because so much of what is happening in the world is trying to distract us from being present in ourselves. And there's a critical way that performing art that's based in time can allow us to reconnect to ourselves. So when I'm constructing music, I think when I'm making records, it's a really big difference from what it means to perform. I consider them to be two totally different things. For me, the recording process and the writing process, that's a process of inquiry and investigation over a longer period of time. It's a process for me to have a dialogue with myself, to have a dialogue with my sense of a creator, to have a dialogue with my psyche, to have a dialogue with literature, to have a dialogue that's more like me creating a sculpture or a painting or something else. When I'm working with music live, my medium is time. It's almost not even sound. It's more about time. It's more about space in that way. So when I create music, a lot of times I'm obsessed with drones. I love sustained tones. I love the feeling of suspension, and I love the feeling of air and this movement. And I feel like a lot of Phases in Exile, this orchestration process for the most part was me taking sounds and just processing them and turning them into different layers and placing them at different depths to be able to create some real physical sense of the listener when they're in their headphones or wherever that they're in a place. I really wanted to do everything I could to try to make that experience possible for someone listening, that they could visualize somewhere. And so to that end, I feel like, there's movement in all these different sounds that are happening as we speak now around us in this room, and to try to create some recorded representation of a possible reality. And then after creating that very kind of suspended space with a fair amount of tension because there's so many things moving over the top of each other, my vision was to try to communicate something very intimately and very closely to the person that's listening to again, the lyrics deal with, it's really the record is really about me feeling like on the outside of the world and feeling like I don't know where to place myself, feeling like I have something very important that I need to communicate, and that this message is not something that people are interested in hearing because they're too distracted by all the different things in life. And so there's really a sense with me in this record of going inside of myself and trying to find something inside of this space of plumbing, of digging into the deep of myself. So yeah, I think that when it comes to the actual physical production values, most of it's just, there's maybe 60, 70 layers of different things that I then brought down into a manageable place to be mixed. But there's, if you stand in a church and you close your eyes and you're silent and you're still for a long enough amount of time, you'll hear 60 layers of sound. You'll hear every single little thing. And that sensitivity is what it takes to kind of be in a place, you know? And I think that I'm, you know, I think that, and as we continue to work together for the show that's going to happen on Thursday, I feel very excited and very lucky to do this and to explore this with people. And I also feel like a tremendous amount of purpose about what we're doing. I feel like it feels like the beginning of a very large work. Today, right now, I'm exhausted because it's a lot of work. But I believe that on Friday, I think I'm going to feel great.
But it's Thursday, the show. No, yeah, it's great. And what I felt playing the songs I'm working on this in the last days, I think that what I felt more, it was that it's a kind of journey, you know, that I like really the story under the album, the works, yeah, narrative. But in general, I think that what I felt playing the album with you, so as a whole concert, as a whole experience, and this is another aspect that I would like to explore. And I think that I really felt that you're kind of doing another journey. So it's the album that you are going through different stories, of course, every time of yourself. So, and that's cool. I think that as a first album, as a solo album, it's really interesting also because I know what it feels talking as a band and express yourself as a band, and it's really incredible. But of course it's different of talking about yourself only. So I think that it could be also a kind of finally I can really as a river, you know, to let go. Yeah, it can be of course can hurt, of course, but it's something that is go outside.
One thing I want to address that I was trying to articulate that I missed here is that you were talking about is this different layers of time and this movement that occurs over time and how things change. And I think that, and you also referenced the title, and one thing that I feel like I'm starting to learn as I get older, and that I feel like I'm trying to learn how to honor, is the process of meaning changing and meaning being determined by the context. And I think that that's the problem that I was kind of really responding to about the conventional venues and these other things, is that the context is responsible for so much of the meaning that we as artists, or we as people who are trying to communicate something, the context changes everything. And so as you have all these tiny, small, you know, contexts that are so potent and so rich and so different, they can always change the meaning. And so I'm trying with this project and performing in different places to allow the context to determine the meaning of the music in that time for that place, which is how you can make it local to that community, to the people that are there, and really trying to do everything I can to create some special context that's unique to that time and place, and not creating something that the difference is that what I want to make is art that allows itself and acknowledges the context's power to be able to change the meaning, not something that is going in and asserting something onto a context specifically. We can create our own context. This is important. But also when we go inside, we can acknowledge and participate with that and allow that to inform and change and shift the work. And so in that way, I feel like so much of what I try to do is remove all of the sense of expectation for meaning to stay the same in each situation, but to allow meaning to be changed and to be developing. And when I titled the record Phases in Exile, I had one notion of what that was. I loved the sound of the words. I felt like I had this idea of phasing, of being out of phase. I had all these different ways that I had broke down that language. And then what really occurred when I came to Italy is I felt like I was experiencing a sense of exile, feeling like I couldn't make work, I couldn't be an artist and really truly express myself, and also really like didn't feel like I could serve people the way that I feel like I want to serve people as an artist in the place that I live, in the place that I'm born, in the place that I grow up. It just doesn't feel like it's possible. I felt like I had to be exiled from that. I felt like I was not welcome in this space. And so I started to feel some sense of artistic amnesty here in Italy, and I started to really understand that I had kind of, in a prescient way, that I had like imagined without knowing. There was some intuition in me that had predicted this future of having these different, of chronicling these phases that I'm experiencing in exile. And it's really incredible because I feel like you can, these different phases of this work, the ways that this can change meaning is really, it makes sense for the whole thing. And I think to me it's such a beautiful thing that meaning can be changed by context. And I feel like there's such this evening out and this flattening of culture, and this ability for us to adopt aesthetics so quickly without any of the substance really endangers the core of human experience. And that's something that I want to try to work with people in Italy now, and maybe someday in the future with another place, but now in Italy, to really work on finding a way to reclaim our basic, human experience.
Yeah. I think it's amazing too, because it's for the fact that before I told you about what I felt about the first time I listened to the album, and now how it's different, how it's changed, but it's always the same album apart from a song that we recorded here. So that's amazing, because of course that is just a sign that is really powerful. In the sense that because it started from another way of think about music, and now I'm arriving to the experience, because what I remember is that when we met the first time for the Synapse Fest, it was you told me about, and it was 2 years ago. So in 2 years, many things change, and the people change, many things happen. So at the time, of course, I was a different person. You were a different person, but you told me that the main thing was the experience. You said why we have to lose time, why we have to think about so many things instead of to really feel and go through a real experience. That's amazing, because I think that now that meeting a lot of people and try to make many things as interesting as possible, more interesting as possible, and more deeper, and now I understand that that's the point, really, because when you're doing things in that direction, they have a really, they are something that are, they are really stronger, and they can they can have so many layers. You can interpretations, and that's amazing. So is I'm thinking also to the guys of Rocket Radio that are trying. I think that they are trying to do something that is not only to have the standard radio, to have the standard program, but they are trying to make connections between many people, many all the people that are coming here are people who love music in their really strong power. So they are not only doing a DJ set or doing. I think that's an example of something that is going really deeper. So I think that this is also really interesting because your album and also the show that will happen are an experience. And in the sense that if I have to think about the album, the records that to me makes the difference or that have changed me, they are a fucking experience. So when I listen to them, I can only to be in the dark of my room with the headphones, and I can really have a trip without taking any drugs, for example. And no, but I think that's amazing point. Now we are talking about an album that hasn't been released yet, so all the people who are listening can think what are they are talking about. They cannot understand probably, and it's also hard to describe. As it's hard to describe your album, it's really hard to describe the show that will happen. So, and that's beautiful because it's an experience. It's something that until you'll be there, and you felt. Could be bad, could hard, could be a nightmare, but it will be crazy. So that was something that I remember you told me the first time we met. So I was happy to say.
There's a quote that I really like that it's Bertolt Brecht. It says, art is not a mirror to reflect reality, but a hammer to shape it. And I think that there's some level where we have the ability to be able to shape reality with this artwork. And I feel like that's really my intention, is to try, if you think about things to scale and you're not trying to create some, something that's an enduring work that's going to last for another 1,000 years, and you really can focus on making something that's only for that time, then I believe that you can really play with the fabric of reality. I believe that that's really possible. And playing with the fabric of reality for me is mostly trying to draw people into the real, trying to draw people into the moment in that way. Because people have been conditioned through all of the different things in their life to not experience their life, to try to avoid having to feel the bullshit, to having to avoid contemplating the fact that their life is very quick and short, and that before they die, many people they love will die. We're always trying to avoid feeling these things at all costs. And so if we can pull people back in with our work as artists into themselves, and to be able to communicate something about their innate nobility as humans that are willing to experience life despite the fact that it will end at any moment, despite the fact that while it's ending, they will deal with pain and suffering and all these things. But all these humans that are there at these performances that are present, that are here now, everyone is choosing to live in spite of this really rough situation. And to me, that's very noble. That's very beautiful. And so I want to try to make things that really encourage people to feel like someone is noticing that in them, and that's speaking to that reality with them, and that's there with them in that time. That if I'm a narrator, or if I'm the person that people are paying attention to in that moment, wonderful. But if I am going to ask for people's attention, I'm asking for people's life. I'm asking them to give me a piece of their life, their time, which is the most precious thing. And so I need to say something to them. I mostly want to ask them to let me try to talk to them about them, to let me try to say something to them about what's happening, to try to be able to communicate something to them, and then be able to experience what they have in that way, so that we can communicate something together, so that we can really share in that moment. Something that's not, because this is something that's not, it's not a transaction. I'm not in a situation where I'm standing there, they're giving to me, and I'm walking away. The idea is that we are there together, and we're sharing something, this experience, that once it's done, it's done. And to me, that's what makes it so magical, is not its ability to transcend generations or to last for a longer period of time. I do want to make work that many people can experience, but I really want to understand that once I'm dying, it doesn't really matter if my record is good or bad. I'm dead. So I need to make things for the time that I'm alive and for the people that are there, and that it will live now with, in this time. So anyway.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I was thinking about this because it's a really, really important thing, is the role of the artist. And of course, there's not an answer about it. But yeah, because everyone can have their different idea about it. But I was thinking, for example, about the experience about Werner Herzog that we talked of many times, and is an example of someone that since he was so young but just able to go away, started to travel everywhere, doing everything, working, do anything, because and he said about this, before start doing art and communicate something, you need to have an experience. And his life is still, I think he's 70 now, he's still ongoing, doing many things all around, and that's crazy, that's amazing. And but he's an artist, and the art as a definition, if we can do, is something that is unnecessary, as is not useful, as architecture is useful. So the difference are that. But so what I'm thinking, because also we are in a period, of course, in the world that is really hard, and it's something that, if you really think about it, is scaring, it's really negative, and a lot of time the art is only reaction about it. Is something you can use it to criticize, to make people know some reality around. There's so many ways you can use art. So what do you think about the role that can have an artist as you, that that can be something that is not only to create an experience that for example can be for the people that you have around or the community, or something that can be to tell something, to give a message, to, I don't know. What would you think about this? Because I'm thinking also about some superstars that are using now their level to say something. Because I'm thinking about Kendrick Lamar now is really in a hard position in that sense, because it's so big and is representative of so many things, and really, really hard to talk about it. And we were talking yesterday night or 2 days ago about the black people in the US. It's something that really, really delicate, and so he's a superstar. I think that he could, in some years, it could be politicians, for example. So what do you think about the role in that terms, starting really from what you can do for a community, a small community, or worldwide?
I mean, the question of scale, I think, is something to acknowledge at every step. So at this step, it makes the most sense for me to try to touch the people that I'm with in a time So in Santa Maria and Chiavica, it's the artists that are there with me, and it's the audience. Those are the people that I'm trying to affect at that moment. I'm trying to work with them in that moment to create something. That's my role. One of my critical roles as an artist is to understand and to take responsibility for what I can do and to try to think about what my role is and try to understand where I fit in this way. So I think the first thing to address with the Kendrick Lamar thing is that it really is a question of scale. And so the first step of acknowledging the role is to acknowledge the reality of the scale that you have. So for me to really focus on doing the best thing I can to communicate the most with the most intensity and with the most gravity, the message that I have to the people that are there that I can affect. And right now in Santa Maria and Chiavica, what I can do is affect maybe 100 people, maybe 120 people, something like that. That's it. So for me, not trying to think when I'm doing this, I'm not trying to talk to anybody that's outside. I'm talking only to the people that are there, and stop. And I think that that's the first thing, and then understanding that is where you can, and also understanding that if you can acknowledge this, then there's some sense of thinking about the quality of that communication as opposed to the quantity of communication. And I think that the internet has given us this ability or this idea of being able to press a button and speak to everyone at all times. Press the button, speak to everyone. So much easier. It's so much more efficient. But this context and this idea of pressing a button and speaking to everyone, the quality of that message is so it's so low. It has such a, and so not acknowledging that real, acknowledging what the scale is, and not acknowledging and doing the best job of communicating and embodying a role in that scale is that's one of the problems that I feel like an artist faces. And I feel like there's not really I think that in terms of the way that the world is and whether things are terrible or bad. I mean, obviously there's just been news of some new attacks that have happened in Brussels, which is terrible and horrific. But I don't believe that the world has become more violent than ever before. I don't believe that the world is in worse condition. What I do believe is that the world is more distracted and more diluted, and also that the information and the news of pain and suffering are more available at all times. And so there's some sense that we are in a more critical or more negative time because we see everything at all times. But the other side of this is that because we see so much, this Brussels attack, I guarantee you no one will be speaking about this in 1 week. And 100 people lose their lives, no one will be talking about it in 1 week because they'll be thinking about something else. Because it's so fast. And so to me, I think that my mission as an artist at every stage, maybe 100 people, maybe 1,000 people, maybe 100,000 people, is always to try to push people into the reality of where they are in that moment. I want to make time-based art to push people into that moment because my belief, my sincere belief is that if you are really present in time, you can feel everything around you on a deep level, on a deep enough level that you can exercise. You don't have any choice but to exercise empathy, but to exercise compassion, but to exercise some love, because you start to realize just how close you are to every single person around you. Even if you're in the fucking desert, in the middle of nowhere, and there's not one person for 1,000 miles, if you think about it in the in cosmic relativity, you're basically on top of the person 1,000 miles from you. You're touching them at all times. You are always touching the people around you. And I think that if people are encouraged and find the means to be able to practice this sense of presence and this sense of this sense of reality, then they will understand that reality is that they are so close and not separate from the people around them. And then I believe that through that, of course, people have they won't feel this separation. They don't feel this distance, and the kinds of things that are occurring, it won't make any sense to hurt somebody else. And maybe that's like a very lofty thing, but I believe incrementally I want and I have the desire to have that effect. I have the desire to push people close enough into themselves so that they can really have an experience of how close they are to other people, how much they are not separate. And thinking about this kind of thing makes me feel like I want to cry or something. I feel so much passion about this. And to me, that's what it takes to fly across the fucking world and not care whether or not I make enough money to be able to eat and just trust that everything's going to happen. And that's what I feel like if you think about the role of the artist, I want to experience that person's passion. And it's crazy to me that Kendrick Lamar, somebody who's in this situation, has more money, he has the trust of all these people and everything, I can feel that what he has to say has to be said. It's critical that he says it. Not just critical that I hear it, it's critical to him that he says it. And this is the thing, finding this fire, finding this question, finding this thing that you have to fucking say so bad that there is no choice. That is the critical thing that I feel like an artist needs to work on, to develop that sensitivity to the world around them, to the stories of the people that are around them, to be able to hold them inside themselves and speak with a truth and conviction that is so deep and so undeniable that there is no choice. This is the thing. This is what the artist has to do. If this is happening, then it's working. If one person is there and they hear it, it's working. If nobody hears it the first 100 times, it's okay. But if you don't have something to say, shut your fucking mouth.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, totally. There's so much people to listen that are saying stupid shit. Okay, I don't know. It's time. Okay. No, it's great. It was really. I think we have talked kind of an hour. We are stoned about from the rehearsal because we are really tired. But I think that the last thing that we can before going to eat some bigoli col musso. I don't know. Yeah, so just talking up because we are talking about a lot about the album, the experience, and why we are here. If you want to add something about what you tried with to build up, and it's still a process because tomorrow we will have another crucial rehearsal because it's the last one with all the musicians. So, but in this case, because the project of you playing in each region of Italy is something that, of course, will be different each time because of the different musicians, the different tradition of the place, the different venues, the time, so everything will change. But now, what you think about it, what you were told before starting, now that you are in the middle of the process?
I think that one thing that's really interesting is that I came here, I had very high expectations about the organization and about the way things were going to work. I had a very clear vision that there was going to be a lot of different kinds of musicians. I didn't know what to expect, but I guess in my mind, I imagined there being a lot more, like maybe more horns or more strings or more of this or more of that. I had all these ideas of ways that the music could be so deconstructed that it would be down to simply me singing these words and these melodies over something completely outside of my realm of an idea. I thought it was going to be totally different. What I found were a lot of people who most of their primary experience is playing in bands and playing music that's really like more relates to that just kind of relates a little bit more to song structure, and which is really cool. And at first I was like, oh man, it's basically just going to be a band. And then we started playing more and I realized that it's such a dynamic and real expression of the community here. What we're doing, it feels like a real honest representation of the reality. And that to me, once I transcended this like, you know, first thing in myself of just being shocked by the difference, then by the real stark contrast between my expectation and reality, and I just invested in reality, what I realized was that we have something so beautiful and so honest, and so it's cool because I feel like what's happening is that the music is being played in a way that sounds pretty faithful to the album. And I think once we're inside of this church, and we start working on the way that we set everything up with the sound, we're going to end up with something that actually sounds pretty accurate to the music. And there are some moments that we composed today as a group that were really specific and that aren't going to be done in any other time, that relate to the performance, that are there's one long instrumental movement that I'm really excited about. But it's, that the quality of the musicians, the way that they play, their experience, it's so different than what I thought, and it's so beautiful. And it feels very honest, and it feels very real, and it feels very gentle, to be honest. It's not, I don't feel like I'm playing with a bunch of cynical, avant-garde heavyweights. I feel like I'm playing with like young, energetic, and very honest and very gentle people. And I mean, when I think about you guys, and I talk to my wife, if she's listening, I love her very much. When I talk to my wife, and I'm telling her, she's asking me how things are going, and I'm just like, these guys are so gentle. This gentleness is so beautiful, and it's something that I love so much about you as a person, as my friend, and as an artist. I feel like it's something that I'm trying to learn how to interact with, and how to value, and how to learn from you how to be more gentle, because it's something that I feel like is really, it's something that's very beautiful. And so I think that the show is going to have a lot of power and passion, but I think it's also going to be a very gentle expression of the music, and a very authentic and very real expression of the music. And to me, I'm just really excited.
Wow. Thank you. No, and probably the fact that I think this is also interesting, because in this case, the contest make the difference, and we are the guys who have called all the musicians, and of course we are not of the conservatory or the electronic world, as could be more the guys of Rocket Radio. So we have called all our friends that are in a band, kind of standard rock band, not standard in negative way, but in the sense that bass, guitar, drums, that way. So that the things that are gone in that way. But it's really interesting, because probably when you go, I don't know, in another region, you can do a concert with only, I don't know, synthesizers or drum machines. I don't know. Yeah, so this is really, really cool. And so thank you so much. And then we will, after dinner, after lunch, we will do a kind of DJ set selection of the music that you want to make a list. And I don't know if it is related to the album that has something. Okay, it's great, perfect. Okay, and so
if anybody has any if anybody has any requests, I have a lot of different music. I have a lot of, I'm going to try to span many different ideas with music when I'm DJing. But if people want to write in and say, look, I've been smoking too much weed, I need something really, really chill, then that's cool. I can move in that direction. I'm really interested if there's anybody out there that has things that they want to hear, like maybe not exactly the songs, I probably don't have them, but if you want to cruise in a minimalist zone with me for a few hours, I can do that. But I got some good reggae and a lot of good African music that I definitely, even if this is not so present on Phases in Exile, it has to be there. So let me know.
Okay, thank you so much. The last is, in terms of layers, how do you define the Bigoli col Musso?
I'm a bass player. I've been playing bass for 25 years or something like this, and I think that the Bigoli Camuso is the bass.
Is the bass. Oh yeah. Thank you so much, Miles. And see you after. Oh yeah.